From extreme weather events like Hurricane Sandy to floods and droughts around the world, we can't ignore that the planet is getting warmer and its climate is getting weirder. At the same time, though, the political will to act is still in short supply.
The re-election of President Obama and the political transition in China offers an opportunity to forge a new international approach.
Copenhagen, Cancun, Durban, all of the major climate conferences have failed for three reasons. First, there is deep North-South disagreement on who needs to act, how, and when. Each side wants the other to take large and early actions to reduce emissions. Second, cooperation has focused on commitments by all major countries to reduce emissions. And third, cooperation has relied on what we call cash for cuts, the idea that industrial countries will compensate developing countries for reducing their emissions.
Each of these pillars is flawed or has been overtaken by new economic realities. In our book, Greenprint, we propose a radical new approach to climate cooperation. First, redefine leadership roles. Until now, developing countries have been waiting for rich countries to act to prevent climate change. But now, countries like China and India must also lead. And they have every incentive to do so, because rich countries have the resources to adapt to global warming. Developing countries don't.
Second, expecting big emission cuts from developing countries now is unfair. Unfair because it would make it impossible to meet basic energy needs like electricity and transport. Instead, the focus should be on technological innovation. A tech revolution would allow both reasonable consumption and production opportunities for all countries. It would also make it possible to keep temperatures from rising more than 2 degrees Celsius over the next 40 years.
Third, cooperation can no longer be based on cash for cuts. Let's face it, rich countries with their high and rising debt don't have much cash to offer developing countries. Instead, all major emitters, rich and poor, must contribute to a solution based on their economic circumstances.
The rich countries would contribute by committing to an early and sustained increase in the price of carbon, enough to bring emissions down by 80% from the 2005 levels by the year 2050.
And this carbon price increase from carbon taxes or cap and trade would be the key price signal for the private sector to jumpstart the green technology revolution. An added benefit would be new revenues for indebted countries like the United States.
And the large developing countries like China and India would contribute by committing to early elimination of their own energy subsidies and committing to future emission cuts as greener technologies become available. Second, the fiscally stronger countries like China would also contribute to a global fund for green technology development and dissemination.
Finally, the countries that raise their carbon price should be allowed to impose limited tariffs on products from countries that don't. This would make it easier for rich countries to overcome domestic opposition from industries like steel, cement, and fertilizers.
But at the end of the day, cooperation can only succeed through strong leadership both from Beijing and Washington. For the new Chinese leaders, the pressure to act comes first from the threat to China's development, but also from growing civil unrest provoked by environmental concerns.
And President Obama can secure his place in history by delivering on the promise in his acceptance speech to shield our children from the destructive power of a warming planet.